Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Parenting Beyond Punishment webinar, a live Q&A with Amy Bryant and Lori Petro. Before we get started, I want to invite you all to join our chat. Over here is a chat room. If you can chat with us there, you can chat with each other there. We'll do our best to keep up with your chat as we're able to. And you can ask questions just by clicking on the box over here that says question, and then it'll show up as a question and we'll see that. Feel free to ask your questions as we go along so we can get to them without waiting, which brings me to the next point. There is about a 10 to 15 second delay. So I'll say something in 10 to 15 seconds, you'll get it. And so just expect that. If you have any technical troubles, you can refresh your browser or you can sign out and sign back in. And that almost always, fixes the issue. So, welcome. I'm so excited you guys are here. My name is Amy Bryant of Parenting Beyond Punishment and Wild Child Counseling. I'm a licensed and board certified mental health counselor, a child advocate, and an educator. And I specialize in working with children, adolescents, families, and educators here in the Atlanta area. I also started Parenting Beyond Punishment as an online venue for parents and other people who live with and work with children who really want to learn how to work with their children without yelling or shaming or punishing or hitting them in ways that really build that parent-child connection. And it's really become this lovely group of people and a lot of parents who support each other and say, you know what, you're right, this is really hard. Here's some things that worked for me. So I encourage you to come join us on our Parenting Beyond Punishment Facebook page. If you're looking for support, if you're looking for feedback. Of course, it's not perfect. Nothing ever is, but you'll get a lot of what you need there. So I invite y'all to come join us there. So today I'm really excited to have Lori Petro here of Teach Through Love. This is Lori. Lori is a certified parent educator, child advocate, and mom on the spectrum. She holds a bachelor's in education, and she founded Teach Through Love as a vehicle to help heal multi-generational cycles of fractured family relationships by providing parents with a new framework for conscious parenting and communication. Welcome, Lori, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely, Amy. I'm thrilled. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Good, me too, me too. So we're going to start, I'm just going to start by going over some of the skills that y'all have learned through the live webinars we've had this month. We've had a lot of live webinars and they've just been phenomenal. So I'm going to go through some slides to review some of the skills you've learned. And if you didn't have the opportunity to join the webinars, I'll have the names of the webinars on there. You can join the NoSpank challenge. It ends today, but you can still sign up for it and you'll get an email in the next week or two when I'm finished setting it up that gives you a link to all the webinars so that you can go deeper in the learning.
Amy, can I ask you before you start, that Q&A
Yes.
button, when I click it, it says this feature is disabled. Is it disabled for the group as well?
Oh.
Is that the right button? I know people might want to be posting.
Okay. I'm not sure. I actually have never done it from your end. Does someone out there want to try to post a Q&A and see if it's working?
Oh, the chat. Okay, maybe I was in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a different.
That's the enable chat. Okay.
Okay, actually, I was in there's a Q&A button and a chat button.
Okay, yeah, the Q&A, you're absolutely
That's
right.
different.
The Q&A section doesn't work that well, but the chat one does. So
got it. Okay,
thank you.
I'm in there now. Thanks for clarifying. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure everybody was in there.
No, I'm so glad. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see the thing. So here we go. Oh, you know what? Before I do this, make sure yep, I am. Okay. Okay. So is that showing up on the big screen for y'all? Is it showing up for you, Lori?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. So the very first workshop we had was with Lori Petro of Teach Through Love, and she had me as a guest. Thank you. And she really covered so much incredible material. And one of the things that she taught was called the Teach Tool, which are 5 steps for peaceful resolution. She talked about take a breath and notice, engage and empathize, acknowledge needs, connect to problem solving, and then help your child grow through the moment. And she really goes into great detail about what this really looks like. So what it means for you, what it means for your child, and what it means for your parent-child relationship. And like I said, she covered so much material. So if you want to go deeper in the learning for this, I encourage you to check out that webinar that she had. And just as a reminder, I'm going to review these things so that we can incorporate them as we answer your questions live. So if it feels like I'm going through them kind of fast, that's why we're going to help apply them and make them come to life today. So then later in the week we had, or throughout the month, we had 4 workshops called Positive Discipline in Everyday Parenting based on the work of Joan Durant. And we had a number of guest educators. So it was Amy Bryant, myself, and Robin Peters Bennett of StopSpanking.org. And then we had guest educators such as Dr. Ross Green, Rachel Bailey, Kim Hopkins Betts, and Sheena Hill join us. And it was just a really powerful panel discussion on how these positive discipline and everyday parenting tools look from different points of view. So everybody sort of gave their input on how this might look from their approach to parenting and working with children. So these were the main things that we went over. We talked about remembering our long-term parenting goals. So our long-term goals are things like developing a sense of capability and responsibility, having a child who is respectful of themselves and of other people, and having a child who's compassionate, and having a child who, when they're 20, we still have a relationship with them. So those are some of the long-term parenting goals. Then some of the other tools we talked about is the importance of providing warmth and structure, the importance of considering our child's developmental stage, because that will guide how we interact with them. Remembering how children think and feel, because when we can get into their shoes, we better know how to work with them. The importance of understanding the role of our child's individual temperaments as well as our own temperament, because sometimes those can collide, but when we understand them, it makes it easier. And then understanding the role of sensory processing, because our child's sensory input and how they process that can really affect their behavior and how they respond to things. And then finally, a real strong focus on solutions. So if you want to really go into depth about these learning materials, I encourage you to check out the 4 positive discipline and everyday parenting workshops that we have available for replays. Sheena Hill of Parenting Works joined us to talk about how to raise an emotionally intelligent child, even if you weren't one. And Sheena is just amazing. She talks just really concretely about how we can raise an emotional intelligent child. And that means she brings to us specific books we can read with our children if we want to buy those, and also how we can just use the books in our own home to work with our child. And then she talks about the importance of being aware of emotions in general, our own emotions and the emotions of our children. She talks about the importance of recognizing opportunities to connect with our child, especially if you see that they're having a hard time. And Lori talked about this too. When their behavior is telling you, help, I'm having a really hard time, that's an opportunity to connect with them. The importance of listening and responding to our children with empathy, the importance of helping our child name their emotions, and using teachable moments to discuss emotions, and then once again, finding solutions together.
I love the title of that. Even if raising an emotionally intelligent child, even if you weren't one, because I was so not one, but you really can overcome.
You can.
Difficult, even a really difficult past. It's hard, but it's totally worth it.
I'm glad you said that, because she does say that absolutely, if we weren't one, we can grow those skills ourselves, and we can learn them with our kids. What a great opportunity for us to learn our own emotional intelligence is when we're working with our children on it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori. It's like an everyday thing I learn from my child.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. I had a friend who says, our kids force us to do the things and grow in the ways that we were too busy to do before we had them.
Oh gosh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's tiring, right? And you think, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do.
Right. All this life work. What was I doing all this time? But it is really freeing. I have to say that, regaining control of my own regulation, my ability to regulate myself has been freeing in so many ways. Not even just with my kid, but just in general. Being able to tolerate other people. It's really what the key is here. It's not even about our kids. It's really about being able to tolerate our lives. And then it just becomes easier to connect with somebody else because we're not so busy defending.
Yes. Right? Because we see and hear their emotions and where they're coming from, and we're able to no longer be triggered because instead we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yesterday afternoon, Kathy Gordon of Parenting by Connection joined in on a webinar to talk to us about how to unload anger, guilt, and frustration, and all the other emotions that come up for us as we're parenting, and how to do that without dumping it on our kids, and also without dumping it on our spouses and any other unsuspecting victims that might get dumped on. So she really was talking about listening partnerships and how when we create a listening partnership, either with a friend or with someone we don't know, that relationship, that really special approach to talking about our challenges, because there's a specific way to do it that she talks about. And when we follow sort of those guidelines, it helps us offload those emotions like anger, guilt, frustration, overwhelm, exhaustion. It helps us offload those emotions so that they're not leading the way in parenting, and instead we can think more clearly when we're parenting. It also helps us get the support we need to meet the challenges of parenting. It helps us care more effectively for our family and for ourselves, because we all know how important self-care is, even if we don't always do it. It also helps us work through the tensions of everyday life, and it helps us make dependable life gains. So if you want to learn more about creating a listening partnership, what that looks like and how to do it, you can check out the webinar that I had yesterday with Kathy Gordon. You can also go to handinhandparenting.org, where they have an entire articles dedicated to listening partnerships. They have a website you can go to find a listening partner. And you can also take a class, or I think it's a self-guided video on how it looks to have a listening partnership. And Kathy's just wonderful. Having her on and just watching her do it in person is pretty phenomenal. So that's all I have. Now, we would love to take questions from you. If you have some questions and you want to put them in the question box, we would love to do that. Oh, good.
We have some questions, right, Amy?
Yes, we do. I just wanted to read this. Prudent, someone had said that they've really appreciated this program and the challenge, and I'm so glad. It makes it worthwhile, because we have so many wonderful collaborators working so hard to do this, and it's just encouraging to know that people are really finding benefits from it. So thank you for saying that. Olivia asks, she said, I would like some strategies to get my husband on board. Obviously, if he would participate in this, it would have been ideal, and I'm discussing and sharing much. But do you two perhaps have some simple, concrete, effective things I can do or say to him tonight that might help?
You want to go first? You want me to take it?
I was just, the only thing that popped in my head was, I think that you're not alone. This is such a common question that parents, whether it's the mother or the father, or one of them is almost always like, I'm on board. I'm so on board, and I really want my partner to be on board too. So I just want to put it out there that you're not alone, that it's a great endeavor to say, this is important, and thank you. And I bet, Laura, do you have something you want to say to this?
Definitely, because you're right. It's huge. There are so many partnerships, families struggling, whether it's your spouse, your partner, or even your family that don't understand or that question you, can really put you in a tough spot and make you feel like, oh, I can't do this because their reasons sound valid. You sort of start being logical in your head. So I want us to take all that logic out of it, because you're never going to convince anybody. They can only experience it by feeling heard. In the same ways that I try to help families hear their children, or parents hear their children, I want you to hear that other person. And so it's not about coming back with, well, you said this, but what about this kind of thing. It's not this back and forth of an exchange of a debate, which can be healthy sometimes, not to say that that never happens. But when you really want someone to understand where you're coming from, you want to go in with that same empathy. You want to find the shared common ground that you have as parents, or as, whatever it is, even if it's mother, daughter, father, son, that are having these, intergenerational issues, and, all these ideas are passed down. But coming at someone and saying, I hear you, you're just really concerned that she's not going to develop the ability to stop herself from hitting, is so different than, well, you can't do that, that's making it worse. Because then suddenly you say to the person, I understand your point. And you don't try to, and you stay in that feeling place. It's really not about, because you can give all the science, you can send articles and share information. You want to connect, you want to find the common ground. So when you come to this conversation with your partner or whoever it is, come with the intention not to solve the problem or make them come on to your side, but by giving them the ability to be heard, and then find what it is that you both want for your children. We both want them to have the ability to whatever it is, stop their impulses, feel the courage to do stuff without your help, be more independent, whatever it is. You find those needs that you're having. My need is to feel secure that I'm raising an independent child. That's so much different than all the behavior stuff we focus on and how we talk about, well, you're not doing this, or you shouldn't say that, or you're being too lenient. All of this, we just get caught up in the words. And I want us to come back to the feeling place. And whenever you share an understanding of how someone feels, whether or not you agree with how they get there, you open them up to listening to what you have to offer.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think it's just like our children, each of us need to be heard. And there's some power in being heard that takes away the defensiveness.
Yes.
So when my partner says to me, oh, I hear what you're saying X, Y, Z, and he reflects it back in a mostly non-mechanical way, I suddenly go, oh, I'm understood. So I don't have to defend my way. I can sort of move forward and find a solution. And it's the same, without a doubt, our partners love our children like we do. And they're afraid that if they don't do X, Y, Z, that something catastrophic will happen. Because that's what we're told, right? Mainstream media says if you don't hit your child or put your child in timeout or take away their toys, that they're going to grow up to be spoiled brats. But research tells us otherwise.
And it's really, I don't think that we have to defend kindness or respect. I mean, if your child is about to throw a block at somebody, you don't stand across the room and going, oh, honey, I love you. You must be angry.
Right.
Like nobody would suggest that. You go over and you say, I will not let you hit. That hurts. I'm going to help you. And then you move into helping. You don't get angry and defensive. I mean, we do, and we get triggered into that place, but that's our stuff. That's our baggage. That's us coming to the situation saying, you change so that I feel better.
Right.
And when we come to it saying, we don't need to feel, we don't need to make anybody feel better. We don't need to convince anybody. But when people feel heard, suddenly you have influence in their life.
Yes.
So it's hard to do, but it's so incredibly powerful. I have people that have left my communication class thinking they were going to, get ideas about how to change their kids. And they're like, oh my gosh, my relationship with my partner has so changed, because these tools are really, it's a human connection that we're restoring, I think, in families, and not really, oh, do this so that you can, change someone's opinion. It's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's so true. One of the things I also encourage spouses to do for each other is to have them reflect on their childhood. So, like, how did your parents discipline you? And say, how did that make you feel? And the reaction sometimes is to say, well, I deserved it. And you can say, I hear that you feel like you deserved it. But when you were a child, how did it make you feel? Because that's a totally different question. And that can really help them go, oh, well, and then, they sort of have that natural thought of, well, I don't want my child to feel that way, because that's not their intention. Their intention is, of course, to teach them something different.
But validating for them that it was okay to feel hurt in that moment. And it didn't mean that your parents didn't love you, but that feeling was valid. And it's just, gosh, I can't wait till we get to the place where we feel that it's just not necessary to make someone feel bad.
Yes.
To change.
Yes. So true, right?
It's so important, that point, Amy. Exploring your history can really open you up.
Yeah. So we have another question. Michelle asks, I'm looking for some ways to help set limits and follow through, and also to not lose my mind and revert to yelling for saying things I don't mean when setting limits, whether it's about safety or controlled messes or just a not now but later transition. My boys are 4 and 5. Okay, so she wants to know how she can set a limit and follow through with her 4 and 5-year-olds.
Is this in the chat, or is this from the list?
It is. It's in the chat. So it's Michelle.
Why can't I see the chat?
Did you click on the chat at the top right?
I did. It says group chat, and then to list all available comments. Oh, enter. I have to enter something? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's my first time.
It is okay.
Look there. Do you see that? I just typed something. But I don't see anybody else's anything.
Okay, if you look at the bottom, there's a little thing. Does it say to everybody?
It just says group chat.
No, it's okay. Well, let me read it again. So Michelle says she wants to be able to set limits and follow through without reverting to yelling and saying things she doesn't mean. So it could be about safety, or it could be about a big mess, or anything like that. Anything, or like, I can't do this right now, I'll have to do it later. Maybe she's making dinner. Her boys are 4 and 5. So I really like the example Lori gave earlier, when your child is about to, it's really about being active. This isn't a passive, I love you. It's that, of course we do, but it's that active engagement. It's seeing your child is about to throw and getting over there as quickly as you can without scaring them, and grabbing their hand and saying, I see you want to throw that, you're angry, and I can't let you throw it. And it's important everybody stays safe. So there's that physical intervention where you're not hurting them, but you are gently keeping them from doing something that might be harming. So that's one sort of boundary in setting limits. Some of it is 4 and 5 is trying to come up with a scenario.
Well, does she want to know she's asking how to deliver that information differently, or how to really stay regulated?
Maybe both. Let's talk about both.
Because really, when we say, how do I, because kids are going to keep doing it, especially at 4 and 5, developmentally. Yes. They're, sometimes they can keep it together when they're feeling confident and all their needs are met and they're happy, but kids are really reactive. And at 4 and 5, like you said, it's not about being passive. It's not about saying stop from across the room. It's about going in and intervening. And we have to be willing to do that repetitively over and over when they're young like that. And especially even when they're old, if they're having trouble, they're saying, I can't handle this. Whenever a kid is angry or aggressive, they're saying, I can't handle what's going on in the moment. And we have a lot of people that wrote in, I noticed, that are saying, you know, my child is aggressive. They're aggressive here. They do this, and they're just being obstinate and defiant. And we got to reframe it. We got to start changing the language about how we talk about these issues. But in terms of how do we stop getting angry, it's a choice every moment. There is no easy way through it. It's about a new daily practice of mindfulness, consciousness. However you learn to slow down, you're retraining your brain. If you get triggered into anger, and we say, well, because my children, if they just wouldn't, and it's like, no, we have the choice. Definitely we get triggered. Own it. We can say, you know, I don't like seeing that. It makes me angry. We say that. But when we use that to discipline, it actually intensifies the situation for our kids. So stopping your anger is learning to be, you know, take that breath. And as long as nobody, you know, if somebody is in danger and is going to get hurt, we have to intervene. And then we can say, you know what, we all need some space, and I need to go. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I need to take 5 minutes, you know, and you go and take care of yourself. You know, you breathe, you take a walk outside, you know, smell something that smells really nice, a flower, nature. I mean, anything to activate your sensory system to calm yourself down. That's how you get through those moments. It's about making that conscious choice. And in terms of your kids, deliver those limits neutrally, with a neutral tone of voice, I think because our kids take, and I know Robin mentioned this a lot during the last month, our nonverbal signals. It's so important to be aware of what our face looks like. So I always tell parents, just soften your face, you know. If you can just it immediately, it will relax you, and your child will feel that there's not a threat. Because when we come in angry, they feel threatened.
Yeah.
And when we feel threatened, we shut down.
Yes.
So.
And so do our children. Yeah.
And not addressing the behavior. Somebody else wrote in and said, I keep addressing the behavior, but it's not changing.
Yeah.
So, but if we get to that question, I want to just talk about that, not addressing the behavior. But did we kind of cover that one? Did we get that?
I think so. You know, Kathy yesterday had this, I loved it so much. She said, when we feel, I'll click on myself, when we feel that emotion and like we're triggered and we're angry or overwhelmed or whatever, and we just want them to do something, she did this wonderful thing, and this may look crazy, but it's so awesome. She said she just kind of shakes.
Yeah.
And it loosens up that stuck feeling. And it's kind of funny too. So it kind of throws your kid, and they're like, what's mom doing? And it just gets it. It puts you in a different place. And Robin Peters Bennett talked about that too, about movement for a calming effect, which
Definitely.
Rachel had mentioned. Lori had mentioned.
We all respond differently, I think. And so when you find what works for you, because some people say, well, that doesn't calm me down. It's like, okay, find a new sensory tool. Maybe my daughter needs to squeeze stuff. She's a really, you know, she learns by touching, by bumping into stuff, and she's very oriented towards getting out her aggression by having that deep pressure. It's also part of her sensory stuff too. But so for her, it's not always just about singing or shaking, where for me, I can like dance and start singing opera, and it calms me down, right? Bad opera, not really good. I don't really sing. So it's, you know, it gets me out of that place of tension. For her, it took, it would be a lot of, I would play tug of war with her and, you know, give me your anger this way, and help her develop her own ways of getting that, you know, her own sensory tools that work for her, because everybody's different.
That's such a good point, Lori. Like, you know, you might have to try 3 or 4 different things. So like get up and get water, or do some jumping jacks, or put pressure on something like Lori was saying, or, you know, shake or whatever. Try them.
Breathing, of course, is always.
Breathing. Get oxygen to that brain every time. I mean, I hold my breath and I'm like, so getting oxygen to that brain there's nothing better.
That's the fastest way. Hey, Amy, when you said I'm going to put the screen back on me, I've seen you the whole time, except for when you were on the slides. Is that right? Do I just see you the whole time?
You're probably going to see me the whole time.
Okay. Just to make sure.
I think I'm switching back and forth because I keep seeing you big, We can
do
ask.
you? Okay.
So
I didn't even see me big. I just wanted to make sure I was in the right spot.
I'm all about you being seen big, Lori. So Michelle, one other thing I was thinking, because I know you said you want to set a limit where you don't get to the point where you're yelling. And sometimes it's like, if you said it once and you said it twice, like if I say it 3 times, I know I'm going to start going towards that triggering edge. I try not to let myself say it 3 times. Like if I say it once, maybe I'm too far away. And after I say it once, like, go get your shoes on. And she doesn't do it. She almost never does it when I do it that way. So I go to her, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to go to her and I'm going to say, hi, I see your drawing. Touch her on the shoulder. I love you. I don't say I love you. I say I love you. But in that moment, I tap her on the shoulder and I say, I see your drawing and it's time to get our shoes on. Let's go. Do you want me to help you put them on or do you want to do it yourself? So going in to set that limit is super important. Touching them, letting them know you're connected, smiling, softening your face, like Lori said.
Yeah. Prompting them, I like, is a big one, especially as they start to get older, instead of telling kids what to do, because they start to, as soon as they hear their name, they shut down if we tell them too much. So whatever follows your child's name is like just lost. So going in and saying, I see that you're drawing, it's time to leave. And then wait, what's next? What do you still have to do?
Yes.
Gets them to, think, okay, now I have to answer a question. And maybe you still don't get a response. But again, I think we have to shift our expectations a little bit and not just expect that our kids are going to do what we want when we want. It's just an unrealistic expectation. And it doesn't produce a good human being, that we want, that idea of a good. So if we can let go of that and understand that, especially with younger children, we're going to need to go in and really be active in our relationship and in helping them learn rules and guides and things. Oh, what happened? I heard a big crash. It looks like Amy went away, so I'm gonna. Did you go away, Amy?
Sorry.
That's okay.
My dog.
I heard you.
I dropped my headphones. My dog had something going on. I just had to check on her. She's an older dog. She's 15 and a half. So I'm, anyway, yeah. Sorry about that. I dashed.
No worries. It sounded like you fell off your table or something. We want to make sure you were okay.
My headphones did. I'm so sorry. Okay. So Olivia says, my daughter turned 5 this month and has started saying in response to a limit being enforced that she will kick or hit or whatever if we don't do whatever the limit set was that we are moving on from. I've been trying to keep on with the empathy, but it can take a very long time for us to move forward. So she's saying, it sounds like what she's saying is...
empathy doesn't work, Amy. Let's admit it. Right? Empathy doesn't work when our goal is to get our kids to do things.
Yes.
So I don't want anybody to take away empathy and think that they're replacing consequences with empathy and that's going to motivate. Oh, okay, you don't want me to use logical consequences to motivate my kids or spanking or whatever, punitive consequences. You want me to use empathy. And then they come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not working.
Yeah. It's confusing, right? Because we say our children need empathy, but it's not empathy alone that's going to make it happen.
It's not. It's not about, and it's for this mom that you can get so triggered when our kids speak to us and we see that but here's what we want to do. Instead of seeing that they're getting defiant or disrespectful, I want us to see that they're getting more and more triggered into fear. So don't take that behavior personally. What your 5-year-old says to you in the heat of the moment, or even because parents will say, well, she wasn't stressed out. She was perfectly calm and standing there. Stress doesn't have to look like yelling and screaming. It can be shutting down. Getting rigid and inflexible says I'm shutting down, that I can't cope with this experience. So that's when we stop with the logic. We stop with all of the trying to connect with them in this moment of saying, I'm going to give you reasons why you should calm down. And we say, you know what? Those words tell me that you're really angry. Tell me more about that. That's how I respond to aggression. is to invite it, because your child is saying, I'm having overwhelming feelings that I cannot deal with and I need help. And so I like to teach parents to look beyond the behavior. And what it's really saying is, I don't like this situation. And that doesn't mean that you change it. It means that you take your child in and you say, we're going to work through this together. And you're going to, you're angry. You just validate it. You don't have to say, but you still have to do this. You just stay right there.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take some more, but I love when we can take the focus off of the behavior, because the behavior is really just a manifestation of how our kids feel or what they need or what they can't deal with. So it's a symptom. It's telling us stuff. And instead of pushing that away, saying, you're not going to do that, I want you to bring it in and say, I'm going to help you transform this feeling of anger. And then as they get older, it's amazing. My 9-year-old was an intense, aggressive kid when she only had she had totally calm, happy, and I'm going to I'm so overwhelmed, I'm breaking down and screaming. She didn't have anything in between. And to see her, mature through the years, and I had to have faith that that I didn't need to consequent her. She's never had a timeout or I've gotten angry and I've been aggressive, but I've never used punitive things. My anger is where I struggle. It's not really with punitive consequences. It's about me not getting angry. But really giving her that foundation of saying, I see an emotion, I'm going to help you understand it, has been life-changing for me, to see her and her ability to cope. Because I was the kid who couldn't cope. I was a mess when I was younger. Rage, I had long issues with as a child, rage, like tearing apart rooms. I was 16 and still tearing apart rooms.
Because no one helped you develop skills to do anything different.
No, and I had such an intense sensory system, a sensitivity, and such a poor model for communication regulation that I was I lost friends. I lost lots of things over the years. And it wasn't I was a bad kid. It was I didn't have that connections, and
you were overwhelmed, right?
Mm-hmm, totally.
And what else do you do to get rid of that overwhelm than to get it out of your body by destroying?
Yes. Yeah, and when we're young, it comes out like that, especially because it's just, evolutionary, from evolution, that's just how we are. We're going to fight.
You either get it out or you explode, right?
Exactly.
So Olivia also says, is this normal? Will it get less? And will it happen anytime soon? Yes, it's normal.
Very normal.
And when you're with her and you're demonstrating what it's like to remain emotionally regulated and to get those feelings out in healthy ways, just like we do by walking or moving and helping her find what it works for her and letting her have the space to be angry and to express it, like Lori was saying, yes, it's going to get better. I mean, soon, it's all relative, right?
It really is. It depends on your child, your experience. There may be added stress that, sometimes a new school or just starting school, or there's so many little transitions that we think are, they should just get over it. But for a child, it's so deeply troubling to have something change because it's new and it's unknown. And, I have 41 years of experience dealing with change, and I still have trouble with change sometimes. So when we think about, it puts it in perspective when we think about little kids, that they process things slower, they're slower to adapt, but we are adaptive creatures. So if we can just allow for that to naturally unfold instead of trying to force our kids to adapt, because then we get those maladaptive strategies, right? We get the shutting down, we get the addictions, we get all of that stuff that we try to soothe ourselves with.
Yeah.
But if we could just learn to deal with those emotions when we're young.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori. So we have one on conflict resolution, and I'm assuming this is siblings. Michelle says, on conflict resolution, when should we step in? An example would be when you have children struggling over who goes down the slide first at the playground, or when another child is over for a play date and they are struggling over the same toy. I sometimes wonder if I jump in too quickly, not talking about it getting physical at all. Okay, so this isn't about sort of physical altercations, but I have some thoughts on this, Lori, that I might start with. So it sort of depends on the age of the child, right? Because children, they don't have the skills to resolve conflict, and they need us to help them develop those skills. So I'm an advocate for being hands-on, especially at very young ages, and until you see them begin to develop those skills. And it might depend on a play date, how much skills that play friend has too. I mean, I let them work it out some, but I also try to help them resolve it together. So a toy is a great example. So like they're fighting over my phone. This is a toy and I want to turn, no, I want to turn. And you might go in and put your hands on the toy between them and say something like, you know, I see that you want this toy and I see that you want this toy. Tell me what's going on. And so you might say, you know, you tell me your version. And you might have to say, I know you want to talk and I'm going to give you a time, but right now it's John's turn to talk. And you let them talk and you let them talk. Is there anything else? Okay, anything else? And you listen. And then you turn, okay, you tell me what's going on. And it's just like we were talking about with spouses, right? We want them to be heard. Because when they feel heard, they're able to let go of those emotions. They're able to think about ways to resolve problems, and they're less stuck on the idea of it. I have to have it now. Oops. Sorry. So it's about giving them space to have it heard, and you're holding it and you're keeping it there and you're not letting them take it. And it might be a little bit of a struggle. You're just keeping it safe. And then you say, okay, so I've heard y'all's story. What do y'all want to do now? You know, and you present it to them and you'll reflect what they say. Oh, you want to go first. Oh, and you want to go first too. Huh, what can we do? And it might take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but this is how they learn those skills. And eventually someone might come up with this crazy off the wall idea like, you go hide it, Mom. And then whoever finds it plays with it first. And they can do it for 3 minutes. And they might come with this crazy convoluted scheme and you go, okay. And you go with it and they're going to love it because they've resolved it. You haven't had to do anything.
I love it, Amy. I think you're right. There's no, like with anything, there's no one way to just say, oh, I should intervene or oh, I shouldn't intervene. And I think with young children, you're absolutely right. Sometimes they need, although I am an advocate for hanging back because even if you see one maybe not treating the other one fairly, if maybe one's older, well, that one who's older, I mean, the younger kid is eventually going to grow up and be able to take care of themselves. So I don't think that we should run in necessarily all the time. But if you do feel that it's getting uncomfortable or you see one child's getting really agitated, then I think it's really important, yes, to definitely step in and give them that space. And what you were saying is it's so great, and slow it down. We sometimes want to run in and say, and kind of rush through all those steps. Okay, you listen, you know, I want to hear you and I'm going to hear you. Okay, now this, or we try to give them the solution. Well, how about you have it for 5 minutes and then, oh, that's too long, you know? So I think we can come in to hold the space for them to have the conversation without actually having to make the decisions or decide what happens.
Yes.
And then sometimes if we don't maybe intervene, but we want to check in with our kids, like maybe it was an older child who wasn't being so fair in a way. And instead of going and saying, you know, that wasn't nice to your brother, we go in and saying, you know, I overheard your conversation and I saw that, you know, you gave him that, you know, whatever, you gave him that piece of the toy, but you really didn't want to let him play with the whole thing. And just investigating with your kid, you know, what was going on for them in that moment so that they can reflect back on how they treated someone or what, you know, so that they can connect their feelings to their behaviors without feeling like they're being interrogated or judged.
Yes.
You know, you can still go back to those moments. With young kids, I think you are going to be stepping in more often than not, but we also want to look, this is my last point on this because I think it's really important. What is the power struggle with the kids really about? Is it that they're having a relational challenge that, you know, one continuously feels overpowered or left out or whatever it is? So that's different. It's a totally different reason why they might be fighting over that toy. Or is it that they don't have the skills, you know, the communication skills, and they really do need you to sort of walk them through it? Or is it that, you know, one kid is there's a lot of stress going on. So we have to look at what is the deeper need behind this toy? It's not always just about the toys, because sometimes kids are having continual conflicts over and over, and we think, I've done this, I've walked through the strategies with them, and we come to find out it's a deeper need. It's a need to feel recognized, validated. To sometimes little siblings want to connect with their bigger siblings, and they do it by being a pain in the butt, by taking their stuff, and all those kinds of things. So it's important to look at again, beyond the behavior and the deeper need, because that can help you direct the conversation as well, and not try to just arbitrarily say, well, you have 5 minutes and you have 5 minutes.
Right.
Get to the point where you actually connect them onto what's really going on.
Don't you feel like we could do a whole webinar on that? Just all the stuff that goes into peaceful conflict resolution at the various ages and stages, including for ourselves with our spouses even.
It is. It's really a continual learning process, which is why I think these, this month-long challenge and these forums where we get to connect are so great, because it's not like, oh, I got that in a class and now I go and I apply that information forever. It's really integrating it is not as simple as just knowing it.
It's not. It's trial and error. Well, this worked for me, but this didn't work. And I tried this, and this is what happened. And that wasn't what I wanted.
Getting away from that idea of I'm looking for something to work.
Yes.
That's what I was talking about. Like, the empathy doesn't work, because empathy is really there as a neutralizer. It's there to help calm tension and help relieve the discomfort that causes poor decisions, bad behavior, and all that stuff. So empathy is really sort of that first aid that gets you to the problem solving or the brainstorming or the prompting or whatever we're working on in that moment. Empathy is really not the motivator. It's the calmer.
Yeah. It's so right. We have to stop thinking that we have to control their behavior, because they're in control of their behavior, and all we can do is open up space for their behavior to be more about things that support them being around life the way they want to be, instead of them being reactionary. If we're always reacting to rules, we don't get the chance to behave in ways that support ourselves.
And our brains don't grow in the ways that we want them to. Even our brains, when we shut down and refuse to deal with stuff and just keep it at a surface level of behavior, or she did that, or that defensiveness, the blame and the shame, the judgment, the guilt, those 4 things will just ruin us.
Yeah.
And if we can just move beyond that, we really do. It's just, you get to that deeper stuff. And then kids don't rely on you later to make their decisions, because kids will shut down. They'll be like, I'm controlled, and they get, they become dysregulated in the moments where you really want them to keep their head on their shoulders, to practice. They never get the practice at using that thinking part of their brain. So they stop making decisions, or they make poor decisions.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I'm seeing that we have about 8 minutes to the top of the hour. Is there one of the questions that was submitted to us that you were particularly interested in
Let me look.
responding to?
Let me see. I know a lot of things definitely overlap. I think, let's see, Lisa, I think we kind of covered Lisa. She said, I would like some practical solutions to the, if you don't do that again, I will do. So I'm working really hard to break these parenting patterns that I grew up with, but consistently get stuck on this. She says, I address the behavior. We don't hitting hurts, but how could we do it differently? So again, shifting, the most important thing that you can do is start addressing the need. You don't really even need to address the behavior more than once typically, and sometimes even not at all, because your child knows. They know that they're not supposed to hit. So expecting it, being preventative, using preventative force, like Amy was talking about, is really important. And knowing that we can't just say, if you can't do that, and then expect our kids to follow. We really need to be the partner. We're like a spotter at a for a gymnast. We're not there to help them do everything, but if they start to fall and wobble, which kids do a lot, we need to be able to be willing to catch them and not be like, oh, you fell, try again. We want to really, and sometimes we let them fall. We don't want to interrupt natural consequences, but we want to stop imposing things because it just makes our kids, they just shut down. They become really fearful and feel threatened when we use that threat. So I think changing your shift on the outcome, what do you want in those moments? The practical solutions, I think, come back to, what do I need in this moment? You can address your child's needs, but you can't do it until you're really clear about what you want. And it's not, I want my kid to stop. It's, I want harmony. I want peace. I want, to feel heard. I want to feel validated. You start connecting with that piece in you. It changes the way you then talk about your children and the way you see their behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. And, she didn't say how old her child is, but you also might need to tell her what else she can do. So, instead of you can't hit or we don't hit, you might say, if you're angry, you can clap your hands, or you can say, I'm mad, or you can stomp your feet, or you can get up and shake or squeeze this ball, get some of those things to let them really express their anger. And Lori, like you said earlier, tell me about it. I hear you're angry. Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm. Validate. When you hear words, especially come out of kids, whether it be a slammed door from a teenager or a I hate you from a 9-year-old, it's telling you something about how they feel. It's not really saying I don't like you or I don't have to listen to you. Yeah. It's really they're showing you how they feel inside. But also I wanted to mention that she didn't mention how old her child was, so that was interesting too. If it is an older child that you're dealing with, you want to look at where's the aggression coming from, where's the frustration coming from. If something is happening over and over, start tracking the triggers. What's triggering it? And then you can find out is there's a relationship challenge with me and my child, or that it's definitely a skill challenge, or there's some added stress. You can start to really pinpoint where that behavior is coming from.
Yeah. Thanks, Lori.
There were I know there was a question. Did you have anything for Jennifer? Because I know this is sort of one that may get overlooked because it's not as common. But the extreme selective eating, the school refusal, I thought it was really interesting that she said her child's taking daily meds. I believe it's her child, daily meds for chronic health conditions. So this can really, when a child has chronic health conditions, it can make them extremely sensitive to change. They're not as adaptable. It can trigger us into a state of being on edge, being hypervigilant because of the trauma that's involved with chronic health, that can be involved with chronic health conditions. So I think going 6 years old, she did say how old. So sleeping, these are all, I think, manifestations of fear when a kid has a medical condition. And so there's a lot of fear that comes, fear of, am I going to be okay? I have to keep going, I have to keep taking medicines, or I have to keep seeing doctors. Suddenly your sense of safety is altered when that happens. And so I think being really rigid and inflexible, you've got a huge job, Jennifer. It's really a big, I don't want to say sacrifice, but you really have to give a lot when someone's gone through something like that, whether it's, an older person or a little person or just any, age person. It's really difficult. And their sense of safety, I think reaffirming that in those moments will help them, because it's not about the food or about the, it's really about a sense of safety for a lot of kids when that happens.
Yeah. And there can be so much to it, right? If you feel unsafe, you have a lot of anxiety, and anxiety just snowballs into
nothing new can come in. You don't allow new foods. You're really selective because you're confident that that's safe and that won't trigger those horrible, unsettling feelings that come with, fear and that loss of security.
Right. Well, right. It just makes I just want to have oatmeal every single morning. I can't handle anything else. I just want oatmeal. I want it to look the same. I want it to be look the same. I want it in the same bowl. I want you to greet me in the same way, having that stuff where you're always know what to expect and you're not surprised by anything. It's scary, and it's scary as an adult when those things happen. So
using rituals actually would be another great way. Actually creating rituals around the things that are scary, safe rituals where you're really connecting, and it's not about, oh, we're going to try new foods.
Yeah.
It's about food becomes like the special time that people talk about. That become like, it's not just about having this extra special time. It's about having a ritual of special time around the difficult situation, whatever it may be, sleep or food or, bathroom issues, whatever people may be dealing with when they have kids with anxiety.
I totally agree. I think when you can, for the things that are really difficult, if you can have a very simple but consistent rhythm around it, makes a huge difference, so that they know what to expect every time. So it's smooth for those really difficult times. It's hard. Anxiety is really a tough one for young children. I mean, we know how tough it is for adults. So when it shows up in young children, it's just that much more debilitating for them.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that it's the top of the hour, and we still have
quick.
It did. It went by so quick. And I just love having these conversations with you, Lori, and our communities together. It's just so great.
It's awesome. Thank you for inviting me again.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining me. And for everybody who was here, we really appreciated your participation. Y'all had so many lovely things to say to us in the chat room. Thank you for those. We didn't get to one question, and so if you want to join us in the at the NoSpank Challenge Facebook page, I will copy and paste that right now, and either I or Lori or both of us will try to respond to that on the NoSpank Challenge private group. So go join us there, and we'll make that happen. Excuse me. Apparently, I've talked enough. So thank you each of you for coming, for being a part of the NoSpank Challenge. I hope that as you continue to practice these new skills, that you'll come to us for more support. You can see Lori Petro on her Facebook page. You can visit her website. You can join the NoSpank Challenge group or the Parenting Beyond Punishment group. We would love to really help support you along the way. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Lori. Bye.
Bye, everyone.